few hands. One model for this was, for example, if I owned a railroad company, I charged people to ship goods on my railroad. What I would do, if I had enough money to support it, is lower the price that I was charging people to ship goods on my railroad. And so everyone would come to me, and I would get a lot of business, but at low price, and probably I'm losing money. But it's so low that ultimately I could drive out of business the other railroad sitting nearby me. And once they're no longer able to function economically, I offer to buy them out. They sell to me. Now I have two railroads, and I go off and I lower the price of transporting goods on the second railroad while I jack up the price on the first one to produce the funds that I need for the second. Drive out of business someone else and move on to another railroad, and then on to another railroad, and on to another railroad until I've controlled a whole area. When I've got a whole area under control, jack up those prices to produce income to support my move into some other business, and do the same thing over and over again. This is good capitalism. It also is the pathway into monopoly capitalism. And in the late 19th century, the United States faced for the first time the experience of monopoly capitalism and the tension of what to do with it. The whole rise of government regulation, the whole rise of government participation in economic activities was a response to this emergence of monopolistic practices. You may have heard of, for example, the Sherman Antitrust Act, passed, I think, in the 1880s. That marks the beginning of government regulation. So government stepped in to make sure that a powerful minority, a small person, could not somehow gain control of the whole, because enlightened self-interest depends upon the person being relatively small. We've got to have, the whole idea in enlightened self-interest is that all persons are the same size. Well, and this concludes this to conclude this little discussion, in a way we're replicating the same problem today. The corporate person was supposed to be rather small. And in a world of, if we can think of the world as a set of independent nation states, each an independent entity, corporations used to be small relative to them. But since the 1960s, corporations have become multinational. IBM was the first, by the way. In the 1960s, IBM was spreading into Europe. And indeed, the spread of IBM around the world led a lot of other countries to develop nationalized computer industries. The French, in particular, were desperately afraid that America was somehow going to take over France through IBM. And the rise of French computer industry was a direct response to that. IBM led the way in the 1960s with a whole new concept of multinational development. And arguably today, we have a system that no one really predicted decades or could think through decades ago. A system in which we have a world that's, in the first instance, a set of independent nation states, so a collection of individuals. But living in between and across those nation states are multinational corporations who both live inside of countries and outside of countries. Corporate persons are becoming really big persons. And a key question that gets raised, does enlightened self-interest work when some persons are a lot bigger than other persons? And furthermore, does it work when human persons are full citizens inside of a nation, while corporate persons live much of their lives outside of the nation? Arguably today, the nation states of the world are struggling, trying to figure out what to do with multinationals. One illustration of the fact that corporations, multinationals, can live both inside and outside of nation states has to do with the calculation of taxes and tax receipts. Taxes are based upon receipts at the end of a work day. One way of getting around or messing with your net receipts on a given work day in a given location is through the electronic transfer of funds. There are a lot of multinationals right now who have divisions in lots of different time zones, and they're able to transfer funds electronically from one division to another in order to show losses or whatever in each location. And then the money keeps moving as the clock turns around the world. So it has moved from one division to another, to another, to another, and then back, and then to another, and then back, and then around and back. The point being that there are trillions of dollars right now circulating the globe, all as part of a well-organized and reasonable strategy for corporations to adapt to the fact that they live both inside of nation states and outside of nation states. So, the major point that I'm trying to get out through this discussion is that we have an image of the world today as a set of discrete and independent nation states competing with one another. That image is very much an American image, and it's an American image that's born out of the American concept of the nation as a collectivity of individuals. Every image makes some things visible and hides some other things. The dominant image of competitiveness makes visible economic issues, but it also calls attention to and hides anything that does not fit that image.